Hi guys, welcome back. It is Friday evening over here where I am. So I don't know what time it is where you are, or if you're watching this after it's been archived, or what day it is, what point in time you are watching this. I wanted to talk to you about, as I always do, what I'm thinking, what's going on in my mind. I really want to make sure that what I teach is practically applicable. I want to make sure that what I teach is something that I have experienced. Um, and I want to make sure that what I teach actually is helpful. Listen, there are there's a lot. There are how many thousands of spiritual teachers on YouTube that you can listen to. And a lot of them tell you what you want to hear. A lot of them will tell you stuff that, I don't know, maybe they don't even know or understand. There's quite a few, I think, who are just trying to figure out how they can make a quick buck and how they can, hey, everybody's got to make a living. So, however that is for them, that's fine. I want to make sure that what I teach is actually practically helpful. And so sometimes I talk a lot about deep spiritual concepts, and I talk about spiritual techniques, and we'll talk about those today too. But I'm in the frame of mind lately where I really, I am going through some transformation. And so one of the other things that I want to do with you is I want to be current and transparent with you. I want you to see that I'm a human being. And even though I may talk about things that sound lofty and unattainable, and I may teach concepts that, how to become a perfected immortal, how to transcend the matrix, how to achieve enlightenment, how to control the matrix. These are things that I've said before. And by the way, I think it's a good idea to go back and watch some of my other videos, like the 3 steps to something the matrix. I can't remember what it was, to exit the matrix, I think. Excuse me. And then there's one, I think, which is the 5 steps to control the matrix. Go back and watch those. I'll be kind of starting from, after those. Even if you haven't watched them, you'll still get it. But there are some basic things that you need to understand when I'm talking about the matrix. So, let's just go ahead and get on with it. So I have here this little film here showing you what the 3 steps are, and then I want to talk about each of them. So let's see, where are they? The 3 steps to transcend the matrix are... So those are the 3 steps. So let's start with the first one. Determining your prime directive. So I don't know if you've ever watched Star Trek, but Star Trek has this thing called the prime directive. So I'm using that phrase because it sounds cool, but it means something different. The prime directive there was that you never revealed to primitive societies technology beyond their ability because it might destroy them. So that's not what I mean by the prime directive. What I mean by the prime directive is the first step in order to transcend the matrix. And I use language very specifically. So I'm not saying exit the matrix. I'm not even saying control the matrix. I'm saying transcend the matrix. The first step to that is you have to know what your prime directive is. And what I mean by that is that within each of us we have a built-in program that we programmed. So again, if you were to go back and just a little bit of an update if you're not familiar with my understanding of the Matrix. My understanding of the Matrix is that the Matrix is, it's not a computer program and it's not an illusion. It is a video game for the soul. And it is a video game that you created. You know, we created it together. You create your own video game and your own avatar, which is your human body. Your human body is your avatar that you create. And your soul is the person that's, you know, behind the joystick and, you know, controlling it, or at least making the choices to control it. In order for it to work, you know, if it's an online game, you got to have your internet hooked up. That's got to be working. You've got to have either your computer or your, I don't know what the heck you use these days. I don't know what the kids are using these days for their video games. Whatever it is, whatever technology you have, let's say it's a computer, you got to have your computer functioning. But your life is your video game. So you are the avatar, you create your avatar. Now there are some overall boundaries within the game that you can't do anything about, but within that you have all kinds of choices. So you can decide how to, you know, how many people are you know, what team you're going to hook up with, which might be your family, you know, where you're going to live, what kind of person you're going to be. You build in all of the challenges and all of the one-ups, you know, when you get the little prizes and the, you know, whatever, eat the little mushroom and you grow 10, you know, all that stuff, you program that into it before you send yourself down into your avatar. So you're not a victim. Nobody's forcing you to be in some computer matrix and then they're not going to eat your soul. You don't have to worry about, you know, any of the pitfalls. That would be a pitfall in the game. For instance, let's just assume for argument's sake that there are beings, false beings of light, who are trying to keep you trapped so they can suck your life force out of your body. Let's just assume, for argument's sake, that's true. That would be one of the pitfalls within the game that you are supposed to get yourself out of. And again, you put it there. You put it there so that you would learn and grow. And like video games, you know, back in the day, you know, I had a quarter. I'd stick a quarter in and play Pac-Man or whatever the hell it was. You know, and you have 5 guys. And when you get to your last guy and you're about to, you know, that there's that one level you've almost got and you're about to get it and you can feel it, and then the guy dies and your last guy dies and you cuss and you scream and you bang on the machine and you stomp and then you take a deep breath and you go, ah, that was so cool. And then you pull out a quarter and you do it again. While you're in that phase and your guy is dying, you take it very seriously. But once it's over, once your guy has died, then you realize that it's just a game and that it's fun. That's what life is for the soul. So that's the assumption. Everything is based on an assumption. I don't care what your belief system is, it starts with an assumption. Those are the assumptions that I put to my teachings. And the reason why I suggest that you adopt them is because they work. If you have a faulty assumption, or if you have an assumption that makes you a victim, if you have assumptions that are based out of fear, then that is what you will create in your game. And you know, the parameters of the game will not go beyond that, because your base assumption, you know, starts from those limitations. I don't have those base assumptions anymore. My assumption is what I just said, that this life is something that I have created and that I have, you know, mastery over it. And these 3 steps are the 3 steps that you can have to transcend it, so that it stops being this thing that's happening to you and it becomes something that you can transcend. You transcend the limitations, what people call enlightenment, you know, that kind of stuff. So step 1 was determine your prime directive. What I mean by prime directive is the program that you put in your soul, in your avatar. Let's just say you create an avatar, and within the avatar you put this program, that when your avatar follows that program, it will be extremely successful, and it will give you the ability to succeed in the game and win at the game. But part of the game is you have to find what that is. So if you don't know what that is, that's part of the game. And in my experience, to bring it down to a practical level, in my experience, not only in myself, but in people that I've known throughout my 54 years of existence, and people I've watched in my 54 years of existence, people who don't know what they want are among the most unhappy in this game. And oftentimes finding what it is you truly want can be very challenging. So, your program within you, religions would call dharma, they would call destiny. My ancestral tradition, which is Norse, the pre-Christian Norse understanding, was orlog, which means origin law. I love that word. It's the origin law. It means the prime directive within you, that program within you that you come with. And everybody has their own. Everybody has to follow their own orlog, as opposed to what Abrahamic religion wants to give you, which is you have to follow God's will. And that's a whole different thing, because then God's will can be this really horrible thing. Back in the Middle Ages, it was God's will was that you suffered. And it was God's will that you suffered. And if you had anything good, it's because God blessed you with it. And if you were miserable, it's because, well, that's God's will for you. And you have to, what a horrible religion. I can accept that, if let's just say for argument's sake that it is somebody's orlog to, have a challenging life. I can accept that as long as they get to come back and have a different one if they choose, to choose to have something less challenging. I can accept that. I can accept the soul deciding to come down and having some challenge in one lifetime that we look at in the context of one lifetime. We go, that's horrible. How can it be a just universe when things like this happen? Well, if we're talking about hundreds or thousands of lifetimes, we're talking about a guy with a pocket full of quarters and putting it in the machine, then I can accept that he wanted to learn and he made it really challenging. So next time around, he knew how to avoid those challenges and get to the game, get to the winning part of the game. But it has been my experience that regardless of challenges, regardless of things that you have no control over, that if you follow the program that you put inside of you, that you can experience a very exciting, very fun, very fulfilling, very happy life, very successful life. That's been my experience with me. I haven't shared yet. I will one of these times. I've shared with a couple of people of my apprentices what I went through. And, I've kind of alluded that I've had some tough times. Some of you who've watched me recently go through the death of my fiance, and that certainly has been and still continues to be a challenge and a struggle. But I've been through some things that a lot of you, I believe, have been. And I believe I know some of the reasons why I've been able to enjoy the health and the happiness and the success that I've had, even though I went through things that I've seen destroy other people. And it comes down to these three steps. So the first one is you got to determine what your program is. Now, how do you know what your program is? It makes you happy. It doesn't divert you. It's not, again, it's not like, slamming meth in your neck. That's going to probably make you pretty excited and might make you happy for 10 seconds. That's not the kind of happiness I'm talking about. The kind of happiness that, your soul, you can feel it. Your soul bubbles over with joy and happiness. That's how you know that you're following it. Now, that doesn't mean that as you follow it, you're going to be in this constant state of bliss. It does not mean that at all. In fact, depending on step 2, which is, how defragging your hard drive, how messed up your hard drive is, it might be very challenging to follow your path. Following your path will force your hard drive to perhaps freeze and shut down. And as I say, you're going to be forced to make decisions throughout your life, which are, do I do thus and such in order to be safe, which a lot of times includes pleasing other people, or am I going to do things that make my soul happy? Now, a lot of times making your soul happy also makes other people happy. But sometimes going after what your soul wants means that you may end up upsetting people close to you, and you may even threaten the balance of that relationship. You might even lose people over it. And so, which will you do? In my experience, there's only one thing we can't escape, and that is that there's only one unbreakable law in the universe, and that law is you must go after what it is that truly brings you joy. If you don't, you can choose not to. If you don't, there will be consequences. And the consequences can be things like misery, poverty, emotional instability, health. Definitely, I think the majority of health problems are the result of people not making continuous choices towards what brings them happiness. They're making choices to fit in or to make other people happy or to do safe things, because following your path is going to be scary. You built it that way. You have to understand you created it that way. There was a movie, I wish I could remember the name of it. It was a while ago. It was, I think, probably 25 years old movie. And it was about souls going to different places, and it was a comedy. And the whole thing was did you take risks in your life? And then you go back and you watch, what happened in your life and things that happened, and you see where you didn't take a risk, where you were fearful. And I thought that was cute back then, but I look back on it now and it's brilliant, because I think that's exactly right. My ancestors believed that if you died in battle, you went to Valhalla, and if you died from old age or illness, then you went to the underworld. Now, if you're in a body, unless this is your first time around, which is very unlikely, but if you're in a physical body, you have been to the underworld, and you've come back. You have chosen to come back. Like I said, you've created your life. And the idea of dying in battle means being willing to die in every moment for what it is you truly want. And what does dying mean? Dying means doing something potentially frightening. It could be something as simple as, today I went out surfing, and the waves weren't as good as I would have hoped, and I was on a new surfboard, so I was getting used to it. There are different places that you can, surf on this beach, and there was one place that I go to sometimes, and sometimes I avoid it because there's crowds, and there was a few guys over there, and I'm like, do I want to paddle over there and kind of jockey for position in that? And I decided against it, and then I regretted it because it felt like I was doing it out of fear. Not fear for anything other than, maybe just not wanting to, deal with other people. And I mean, I still think I made the right choice by not going over there, but I wish that I had been more confident about my choice. And I didn't feel good about making a choice out of, even if it was just the fear of being uncomfortable around other people. But it could be something as simple as that, or it could be as significant as not going after the career you want because your parents want you to do something else, and you choose to do the thing that's going to make your parents happy. I ran into this a lot when I counseled people who were especially from China. There were people that they do what their parents tell them, and they don't want to do it, and they're miserable, and but the pressure, the societal pressure to do what your parents say in some of these traditional societies marrying who, they say you're supposed to marry. These kinds of things. When you're in those kinds of situations, then the choice to go after what you truly want and really lose the love and the respect and the safety. Maybe you get kicked out of the family and you lose millions of dollars. Those are really hard pressures to make choices against. But if you're willing to die in battle, meaning you're willing to lose those really important things for what it is you truly want, then you go to Valhalla, enlightenment, whatever it is. You get the joy out of being really fully connected to the game. So that's the first one. The first one is you've got to determine your prime directive, what it is that you really want. The reason why we're going to talk about this, a lot of you have heard me talk about this, I'm going to really focus on the second one. That is what I have been avoiding. I do talk about it a lot. I talk about working with the unconscious mind, and unconscious means you're not aware, by the way. There's a difference between subconscious and unconscious. Let's take a look here for those who aren't clear. 99% of the time when somebody uses the word subconscious, they mean unconscious. So these are the three minds: the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. Subconscious means that you're not aware of it all the time in your conscious awareness, but you can bring it to your awareness when you want. When you need to know what your social security number is, you can remember it, but you're not walking around saying your social security number to yourself all day. It's there when you need it. It's right there just below conscious awareness. The unconscious means you are completely clueless. You have no conscious awareness that it goes on. And the majority of your mind is made up of that. And so I talk a lot about that. But today I'm going to talk about the importance of that. What I call defragging the hard drive in this video. So we'll get to all that, but we got to start with step one. This is a Q&A, so if there are anybody up this late, you can ask questions. Please be sure to limit, if you can, limit your interaction on the chat to questions so that I don't have to scroll through a bunch of people talking with each other, opinions and all that. And in order to get my attention, in the live Q&A, not in the archived, if you're watching it archived, you don't have to follow this. But if you're watching this live right now, then I need you to put question at the top so that I know that you're asking a question as opposed to, talking to the person next to you. So I'll get to those in a moment. Let's watch the little video here so you know how to take advantage of all the things that I make available to people. So be back in, a minute 50. Okay, so let's take a look and see if there are any questions here. So, Pharaoh Horus. Pharaoh Horus question, how do I increase my chronokinetic ability? Since I did take Greek and Latin in college, I know what that means, although I've never heard of it before. So chronokinetic means the ability to move through time, right? You're asking me, how can you increase your ability to move through time? Well, the best, I would say for me, the most important thing that you can do to move through time is to stay in the present. Because again, it makes me want to ask you a bunch of questions like, why do you want to move through time? What is it that you want to accomplish? You're wanting to control something. And then, we're going to be talking about that. Is your desire to move through time because you have some feelings that you want to avoid? You feel powerless. You think maybe it'll give you power. Superpowers are not all that aren't all that they're cracked up to be. I've experienced them. So, Pharaoh Horus, I don't know if you've been on my channel for a while or not, but I do have a video out there talking about how powers really aren't that important. Having said that, there is an interesting phenomenon that I think is very useful, which is the ability to go back into time and change the timeline that you're on. A lot of people will say that when a guardian angel or a spirit appears to you and it has a profound effect on you to the point where it changes the whole trajectory of your life, that it's actually you, that you have gone back into time because you wanted to change your timeline and you gave yourself a message or you gave yourself an experience, and that experience then shifted you onto another timeline. So remember that there is only the eternal now. So it's an illusion that there is future and past. It's an illusion. There's only the eternal now. And in every nanosecond, you are creating new timelines. Every nanosecond. Now, it seems like you're creating the same timeline over and over and over, but most of the time what's happening is that you have a habit of the way that you think and the way that you act and the way that you react. And if you continue to keep acting and reacting and thinking along those same lines, then you end up creating kind of like a copy and paste of your timeline. And you get older, but you still copy and paste, so you keep going. That's why there are people who are, why can't change my life? It's always the same. And then there are people who seem to have the ability to make decisions and change their life. So that's a whole other subject, but to answer your question, how do you increase your chronokinetic ability? Staying in the present and being able to follow your emotional reality. And to be able to go to the source of your emotional reality. So if you have, which would be the lower vibration, anger and fear, those are feelings that are a result. And if you go deep into the fear or deep into the anger, then you get into some other feelings. Follow those. Follow those and take them back to the first time that you started to have, when you made a decision. So for instance, I can tell you exactly, I told about the one I was out surfing today, and there were guys over on this little point, and I didn't want to go over and deal with the people. That's because when I was a kid growing up, further south of here, the surfers there were real assholes. I mean, smash your window and slash your tire and break your ribs, and so if you weren't part of their clique, you stayed away from them. And so I grew up with that. I grew up, and my first response was to surf alone so that I didn't have to deal with them. Now, I'm 54 years old. That's still a knee-jerk reaction for me. And I live in a completely different place, and that vibe is not here anymore, and I'm much older, and I'm much bigger. People get out of my way. They give me respect, all that kind of stuff. So, but I was following an old response to an old feeling. So had I had the frame of mind to listen to the discomfort and the fear and followed it all the way back, I could have then listen to the desire of wanting to be a part of a group, wanting to be accepted by them. And I could have completely changed my choice of actions and said, hey, I want to go make friends with those guys, and then maybe we can all surf that thing together. I didn't do that. And I felt that I was doing that. That's one way. So you're going back in time. The way you go back in time is you follow the feeling. So I know it's probably not as fancy as you wanted. You want me to tell you, put your finger here and focus on the third eye and then shift out of your body and all that kind of fun stuff. Or, take this or drop this or smoke that. But the truth is that if you want to change time, what you really want to do is change your present timeline now, because that's all you can do. Change your present timeline now. And I'm going to share with you how to do that. Okay. All right. So again, thank you for the compliments. I'm going to look for the questions so I can make best use of everybody's time. So make up absolute. If you put in the beginning question so that I know you're asking a question, then I almost bypassed you. Make up absolute. I removed my thyroid 13 days ago due to based out disease, and I want to know how that will affect my throat chakra. Well, first off, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you that. Why do you care if it affects your throat chakra? Why do you care? Your chakra is going to be there. So at the bottom end, it's not going to affect your throat chakra. You're okay. First rule of following the thunder path is get rid of all fear-based beliefs or attitudes or reactions. That's a question based out of fear. It's an okay question, but the thought that having that will somehow screw up your throat chakra, it's not going to screw up your throat chakra in any way. I don't know the physical effects because I'm not a doctor, so thank you for your question. All right, taking a look at looking for the questions. Again, I don't see any more questions. Rosario Constantini, is this for me? Are you asking me? I need to see the word question. What about following God's will, quote, unquote, and the 12 steps program? What about it? You're not asking me anything. What do you want me to tell you? You've got a thing about, you sounds like you're in a 12-step program and you have a problem with the idea of God's will. That's the words that they use. 12-step programs are not religions. I know there's a lot of religious people in 12-step programs, but 12-step programs themselves are not. In fact, they say, find a power greater than yourself as you understand it. So you can change it, don't get hung up on it. Change it to whatever you want. Looking for the questions. Okay. Guys are talking to each other. I'm happy. Let's see. All right, no questions. So let's get on to step 2, the most important one. Again, what are the 3 steps to transcending the matrix? Okay, so this is what I really want to focus on tonight. I talk about it a lot, but it's easy to glaze over it. I talk a lot about how what's most important is following your true joy. I talk a lot about being fearless and going after what you want fearlessly. I talk a lot about that. The second one, you got to defrag your hard drive. So again, if we use the example that your life is like a video game, very much like a video game, and your body and your personality is your avatar that you pick, and this is a live game, and you're playing the game with other people, and so you have to have your computer. So you have to have a computer with a processor and the speed and the RAM and all that stuff and an internet connection. But in order for you to really be able to make the most out of the game, your computer has to be fast enough to process what's happening. So, you don't really have to deal with this with apples. I got an Apple, but the, the PC, you have to do things like defrag your hard drive. Otherwise they get slow. And this is the most important thing. So when I say defrag the hard drive, you first have to, in order to execute your prime directive, in order to follow your true path and your true soul desire, you have to be able to get past all of the unconscious, unresolved traumas and issues. So if, I'm not a computer specialist, but when a hard drive gets fragmented, it's almost like, it reminds me of like it's been slightly damaged. It's been nicked. So you have to kind of polish it out to get it to work. So what ends up happening is that we bring with us unresolved issues from past lives. That's why you keep coming back. It's like when you're in the video game and you get to level 5. You've got to get past level 5, and that's really important to you. And you will put quarters in all day until you get to level 5 and get past it. So when you die, you hit level 5 and you die, your man dies and you scream, ah! That was fun. I got to figure out how to get past that one little thing. Let me do this again. You put your quarter in, you do it again. So you're bringing with you into this life those unresolved issues. And those get stored in your hard drive, which is your unconscious mind. You're unaware. Unconscious means you're unaware. You carry it with you. But it's making all of the decisions for you. Another way that we get a fragmented hard drive is when, as I gave you an example, we make choices to protect ourselves. And they're usually when we're little kids. Now, little kids don't have a choice when it comes to having to protect themselves under difficult circumstances. A really advanced soul might be able to get through a really traumatic childhood with, the least amount of issues. But that's because they've got enough soul experience to know not to respond out of fear, not to make decisions, in order to please other people. Throughout it, they have this understanding of knowing that, being resentful and getting revenge and being fearful and jealous and selfish. They have an innate understanding that those things will not help them, so they tend not to make those kinds of choices. But when you're a little kid and you make a choice to whatever it is, to shame yourself in order to get love and acceptance from your family, your friends, your society, that becomes an embedded pattern. We'll call that a fragment. It becomes a fragment in your hard drive. And because those choices, whenever you make a choice to please others, to avoid, what you think are unnecessary pain, which is, might be survival. When you make decisions out of fear, out of people pleasing, then it creates a fragment in your hard drive that you carry with you. Now, you're an adult and you're listening to me, and I'm telling you the key to happiness is to follow your soul desire regardless of what anybody else says. And you say, I'm going to do that, and you then go after it. And for some reason it's not happening the way you want it to have happen, or you don't feel it as strongly, or you're focusing on being fearless and you're focusing on being positive, which means you're not allowing yourself to get depressed and all of that, but you still have this unresolved fragment in your hard drive, which is still making a bunch of choices for you. And so you're being limited in your ability to take fearless action towards what it is you truly want. And so the only way to get past that is to become conscious. So remember, this is in the unconscious mind. You are not aware of it. It means that you can be, I don't know if you ever had this experience where you're talking to somebody who has a smile on their face and they're acting very happy, but you feel all this anger coming from them. And if you try and tell them, was something bother you? They go, no. And they mean it. They go, nope, I I feel good. Everything's fine. But you feel all this anger or sadness or insecurity or something just oozing out of it. You can see it, but they can't. They're totally unconscious of it. So the way that we do that, if you go back and watch the the ultimate hack video, and I spent a lot of time talking about mantra and ritual, and this is the reason why I'm the bulk of my business right now is doing astrological readings, because the Vedic astrology readings give me, it doesn't necessarily tell me what your unconscious, unresolved issues are, but it tells me exactly how you can defrag your hard drive. It tells me exactly which planets and which energies, and then it'll show me even, potentially exact deities. It'll give me an exact ritual for you. It'll be all right there in your chart. When you do that, that will act like an antivirus program or a defragging program, which will go in and defrag your hard drive. When that happens, then imagine the fragment is something within you that that is painful and difficult, and you've chosen to block it out. You chose to do that when you were a little kid. Block it out because it's too painful. And it's been forcing you to make choices to please other people or to sabotage yourself. You've been unaware of it. Now it starts to come to your conscious awareness. That's what the mantra and the ritual are all about. It has to come to your conscious awareness. Until it comes to your conscious awareness, it's going to be challenging, if not impossible, to be able to take action in a positive way. You're going to continue to take actions and be unaware of it that are sabotaging you. The reason why it's so challenging is that usually there's a lot of pain involved. So, for instance, I just gave to you an example, which I'm as I'm talking to you, I'm defragging my hard drive. It's still bothering me that I was out surfing today and I didn't. Now I'm realizing not only could I have not paddled over and competed for those waves, I could have actually made friends with people. That's something that never dawns on me. And the reason why is because when I was growing up, I got beat up a lot, and I was a little kid, and it was a horrible scenario, and people weren't very nice to me when I was little, and so I learned to be very protective, especially when I'm surfing. Don't come near me, don't take off my wave, and I scare people and they don't want to surf around me. But it just dawned on me that I could completely change my fundamental prime directive, which is, or my fundamental assumption, which is that, hey, they're out there wanting to make friends with people too. Probably, most of them. There might be a few that might not. But who cares? And that would completely change it, and then I might be part of their clique, and then I, totally change my timeline. But now I'm following. That's a painful thing to go back and be aware that how sad it was for me. I remember being, how old was I? Probably 13 or 14, and I was a little kid. I was like the shortest kid in school. I was a late bloomer. I'm not super tall now. I'm 5'9" on a good day, but I'm 200 pounds, and so I walk down the street and people do, most of the time get out of my way and they don't bother me. Nobody messes with me. But when I was 14, I was not. I was a little kid, and I was always like the shortest kid in school, and I had to fight. I had to fight to. I fought all through elementary school and starting into junior high school. And I ended up being like the toughest kid in school, even though I was the shortest kid. Until people started going through puberty before me, and then they would just pick me up and toss me aside, and then I gave up. I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. But then I was a late bloomer, and then I got to be like I am now. I'm a pretty good-sized guy. I can take care of myself, But to go back and relive that at 14 years of age, and I remember, walking down the path to the beach that was right below my house. We lived right above this beach. And for whatever reason, I was not part of the popular crowd. I don't know why that was. I just had a target on me. Probably because I had an older brother that used to really, pick on me and all that kind of stuff. So I probably had this target on me all the time. And I just remember being there and having this guy, this big guy, and he's looking down at me and pushing me and pss, pss, and calling me names. And I remember saying, "What did I ever do to you? Why are you doing this to me?" And they never had an answer. But I would say, what have I ever done to you? So that's a really painful thing for me to feel. But in order for me to get past that fragment and now go out there to this other place, which sometimes gets popular, and paddle out there and say, "Hey guys, what's going on? How are you doing?" And making friends with people. I have to get past that fragment in my hard drive. It's painful. It's unpleasant. And one of the things that is absolutely missing in New Age spirituality is that this whole idea of everything is love and light and just focus on the positive. And I've had people say to me, "I'm following your teaching. I'm being fearless and I'm being positive." And I'm saying, "Yeah, but you are avoiding and denying a major issue here that needs to be addressed." Let me give you another example. People who I deal with this all the time. I've dealt with it. I've gone through it as a person. Intimacy, being loved. One of the things that I wanted, all my life up until I met my fiance, was I just wanted to know what it felt like to be truly loved, really have that feeling of being really loved by somebody. And what I found throughout the years is that I was so protected because I lived in such an unloving environment as a kid, that in order to allow somebody to really love me was really painful. I'll give you an example. When I was 27 years old, I lived in a household where, and I don't know why, but for some reason my parents would forget my birthday. And I got used to it. And being a Leo, I'm a Leo astrologically, I want attention. I want people to give me presents and have parties for me and acknowledge me and all that. I need that. But to grow up with your parents just every single year forgetting that you existed and forgetting that you had a birthday, it was really painful. And so when I became an adult and I moved out, my birthday would come around and it would be a very tough time. There would be days when I'd be punching the walls just so that I wouldn't break down crying. That's how I dealt with it. And I had a theater company at the time. I was a co-founder of a theater company in Hollywood. And the artistic director and a few people came out on my birthday. I had forgotten. That's how I dealt with it. I would forget it was my birthday because it was too painful. And they came out with this birthday cake. And they started singing happy birthday. And I couldn't take it. And I started, big tough guy. And I just started crying and I couldn't take it. And I had to get up and walk out. I had to leave. I couldn't handle it. And freaked them all out. They'd never seen anything like that. That wasn't what they were expecting. But that's a painful fragment that got in the way of me getting really intimate with somebody. Because when somebody would really start to love me, what would have to happen is I would have to go through the grief and the mourning of not being loved. You cannot deny these things. You cannot pretend they're not there. You can't just choose not to have them. They stay with you. And they come out in ways that you are unaware of. Do you know people that, for whatever reason, they are just so annoying to be around and they don't understand it? And people are just like, "I can't stand that guy. My God, he drives me crazy." This is one thing I've seen, somebody who's really creepy and they just have no boundary issues and you feel like they're just really creepy and they don't get it. They think they're just connecting. It's unconscious. They're totally unaware that they do it. And in order to get over that stuff, they would have to face some pain. So it has to happen. And it's ironic that I'm sharing this because the whole point of what I'm wanting to share with you is that in order to be successful, you have to follow your true joy. But if you have fragments, and we all do, if you have fragments in your hard drive, if you have unresolved issues in your unconscious, those things will be the block between you and your true soul desire. Whenever I ask people what their true soul desire is, if they say, I don't know, I know without any doubt that they've got unresolved issues. And I will tell them when they say, no, I'm a happy person. And they mean it when they say it. I'm happy, but I'm bored with my life, or I don't know what I want. Or it's impossible for us not to know what we want unless there's some major unresolved issues. So the one of the fastest ways that I know of is to get a Vedic astrological reading from me and get a mantra and a ritual that goes in there and defrags it. By the way, I am creating a certification program for people because I have too many astrology clients. I'm going to start, well, you can go to astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com if you want to become one. You can learn how I create a chart. You don't have to learn everything about Vedic astrology. I teach you just what you need to know to create the kind of chart that I create. You can go off and start doing it for fun. If you want to work with me, I will take a select number of people that I will give all of my excess work to, and you can make money that way. And if I certify you, you get past the level 2, and I certify you, meaning that I say that you can, do the thunder astrology, my version of Vedic astrology. Then I'll put a little page for you on, I don't know, one of my websites where you can direct people to it and they can buy it from you, and then you can create your own business. Just to let you know. And I'm doing that because I need to. It was never my intention to start certifying and creating teachers certifications. That was never my intention. But in order for me to continue to do this work and for it to grow, I have to. So I'm doing that. Anyway, I don't remember what my last point was, but there it is. In any case, let's look again and see what are the 3 steps to transcending the matrix, and then we'll take a look and see if there are any more questions. Alrighty. Again, the best way to interact with me is if you ask a question. It helps me if you try not to talk to each other or dump your opinion on here, because then that's, that means I got to scroll through your guys' communications with each other. Susie, let's see. All right, let me go back. I think there's a question. How do you know where? All right. All right, let me see. I'm trying to find the questions again. See what I mean? Now I have to scroll through everything, and I'm having a hard time finding where the questions are. Somebody asked me, am I prosperity preaching? Hell no. Hell no. You are obviously new to my channel. That is, you don't know where I'm coming from. All right. Pharaoh Horus question, what chants are good for the chakras? Hi, Pharaoh. You're new to my channel. That is a huge question. It depends on the individual. There are a lot of chants that are good for the chakras. Watch more of my videos. If you really are interested in knowing what chant works for you, then get a Vedic astrological reading from me. I have to look at your chart. Other than that, it's just I'll give out some general pablum that may or may not mean anything. I don't do that. So watch more of my videos. Welcome to the channel. All right. Looking for the question. Let's see here. Natalia Lokia, question. Teacher, just out of interest, what in your opinion is the biggest phony spiritual teaching in current circulation popularity? Why do you think they're popular? Well, to be honest, I'm not too educated in what is super popular now. All I know is, most of the time if I look on YouTube or somebody will throw out something that I can tell. I think the latest one I've heard of is I think Crystal Quartz is her name, and I don't know if she's the only one, but she talks about harvest culling. And I don't know what that means, but people, if you're not a vegan, then you won't go to the harvest, or meaning you won't be taken out of the matrix. So why do I think that's popular? Because it's a way out. People, what I just got through talking about is a very painful process. It's difficult. It takes a lot of discipline, a lot of patience, a lot of fearlessness, and it takes a lot of things that a lot of people aren't willing to do. It's just a lot easier to stay a victim and to stay miserable than it is to be happy. It's easier, and people want the easy way out. That's what Christianity was about. Just believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. It's an easy way out. I think that's why people do it. And I think it's popular because people are in a lot of pain, and people don't want to be in pain. They want a pill. They want a pill that will fix it and make it go away. And I'm here to tell you that you can fix it and make maybe all of it go away. But it will take discipline, and it will take work, and it will take a lot of fearlessness. It can be done. We just have to start teaching people how to do it again. Thank you for the question. Makia says, question. If you ran away from your awakening process consciously out of fear, can you restart it at will? Yes. That's exactly what happens whenever you make a choice out of fear. And usually, again, by the time you're a young adult or an adult or even a teenager, it's already a habit. And we get used to our habits, so we don't even realize we're doing it. But you made a choice once, and maybe you made it a couple of times, and maybe you had some short-term gains from it, like, daddy didn't beat you up, or mommy didn't yell at you, or something like that. And so you said, oh, that'll keep me safe. And you keep making those decisions to please other people, running away from, consciously running away from what, your soul wants. It becomes a habit, and then it goes into the unconscious, and it becomes a fragment. It becomes a fear loop, whatever words you want to use. And you can restart it at will, but it means you have to be conscious. So listen, guys, you got to stop smoking the weed. You got to stop doing the drugs and smoking the weed. And then I sound like such an old fart. I did it all myself. The reason being is because those things take you out of your feelings. That's why we do them. We do them so that we won't have to feel uncomfortable things. And we get the immediate chemical benefit of spiritual energetic practice. You get the release of DMT, the release of dopamine. These are all things that happen as a result of energy practice, mantra, ritual, and taking fearless action. True intimacy will create these feel-good chemicals. But it's 99% of the time, these kinds of things are done to run away from feelings. So you got to stop doing that. It means you got to be in your feelings. You got to feel them. You got to follow them. This is why you can't do it alone. I mean, I resisted going in this direction also, but people need counseling. They need it. I believe most Westerners need some kind of counseling. If it's shamanic counseling, it's hard to find. Somebody complained. They've been in therapy for 15 years and it was all BS. There's a lot of crappy counselors out there. There's a lot of crappy, nutcase psychologists and psychiatrists who, give you medication instead of trying to help you. But we need each other. We need, somebody mentioned 12-step groups. We need each other. We need to be able to have people who will reflect back to us. I still go to a group of people, and what we do in this group is we call each other on our unconscious bullshit. And I got, I get it all the time. I mean, some of my students, I've really, sometimes I give you a hard time, meaning I really feed you the bitter medicine, trying to help you get conscious. Just know that whatever you're experiencing, I also experience it. I'm just human like you. So, yes, you can restart it at will. You have to retrain yourself, and the first step is acknowledging when you're acting out of fear, when you're acting out of people pleasing, when you're trying to escape your painful emotions. And when you're able to do that, then you can do the opposite. I have something that I taught myself to do. My older brother, most miserable person I've ever met. This was the guy when I was growing up. He was 5 years older than me. He used to just beat the crap out of me all the time and threaten me physically, and made my life a living hell. And he is now, last I heard, he might even be homeless. And he's got to be 60 years old. So imagine being 60 years old and homeless. And he's the most miserable person I've known. But I've watched him for my 54 years. I've watched him make continuous choices to be where he's at in life. So he and I grew up in the same home. And when I want to really take a look at how my brain wants to go into victim mentality, I listen to him. I listen to him talk, and I can hear my own self-protective, my own fragmented hard drive, just pop, I can hear it. So what I do now, when I'm aware of it, is when I'm in a really challenging situation and I'm afraid or I'm scared or I'm miserable or, life's not giving me what I want or whatever it is, or, even just difficulty with other people. When I can, I'll stop and I'll say, okay, what would my brother do? And I can hear his voice in my head. He would come up and whatever he says I should do, I do the exact opposite. And it's usually very frightening to do that. That's one way you can restart it at will. When you make choices out of fear, you can stop yourself and, find somebody in your life that's like my brother. And or listen to yourself and say, okay, ask your fear. What is it that you want to do? I want to go beat him up, or I want to go do this, or I want to go run away, or I want to go steal that, or whatever it is. Stop and do the opposite. Like for me, it's not something that I do very easily out in the water when I'm surfing, but paddle up to somebody and say, hey, how you doing, man? Do you got the time? Or what was it like yesterday? Were you out yesterday? Or that's scary for me to do. But I'm going to do it. I said it. I'm going to do it. That's what I'm going to do now. That's how I'm going to restart it at will. Okay, so you find your own way to do that. Is it normal to have problems, i.e., not being easy as the first time? Yeah, it is. It's extremely scary and frightening. That's the whole point. That's why people don't do it. That's why people do things to get out of their feelings, because being in your fear and your pain is unpleasant and it's scary. So yeah, it is normal. So get used to it. But the benefits are huge when you're able to change that and create a new timeline. Because every time you do that, you're creating a new timeline. But just like the old ones was a habit, like if you're on a timeline that's continuing to create the same stuff, you're actually continuously creating that timeline every nanosecond. It just feels like one continuous timeline. But it's a habit. You got into a habit of reacting a certain way, and it just keeps creating the same, laying down bricks right in front of you. Whenever you do that and you do something different and you go against the fear and you act fearlessly, it's like you lay a brick on another timeline. So you have to make a habit out of that, and then eventually that becomes second nature. But until it becomes second nature, it's a lot of work making that choice and creating that new timeline. And if you forget, you can easily jump back onto the old one. That happens all the time too. This is when people are working with me, there will come a point where you will there will be something in the teaching that will start to make things challenging for you and frightening and painful. And people want to do one of two things. They either fall in love with me, or they hate my guts, or they fall in love with me and then hate my guts. But both of those reactions are ways to avoid. They're ways to avoid the pain of their evolution with me. If they can get to that place and see me as a human being, which is why I'm constantly telling you how human I am, so that you can see that I'm just a human being. When they can see that I'm a limited human being and that I'm, my shit stinks just as much as theirs, then they have to make the decision of like, oh, well, he's not all that special, but can I still learn from him? And then if they keep coming back after that because they can learn from me, then I can teach them. Then I can teach them. And everything I'm describing, I've gone through with my teachers as well. I only have one teacher left, and I still go through all that same stuff with you. Basil Minus, how do you know where you will go after death? Who said I know where you're going to go after death? The answer is you don't know. Who cares? Are you dead or are you alive? If you're alive, then stay in the moment. Stay right here. Because wherever you end up is wherever the hell you end up. I could tell you my belief, but who fucking cares? It's just my opinion. Nobody can prove it to you. I'm going through all this and I'm having the same questions. I'm asking the same questions you are. I just lost my fiance 3 months ago. Where the hell is she? What is she like now? I've come to the conclusion it doesn't matter. She is whatever she is. She is wherever she is. Nothing can take away what she's given to me. And she's still in my heart. I know that, whatever that means. When I get off the phone with a client, I can feel what she gave to me. She used to sit next to me when I was doing readings. And she used to love it. And I would say, I'm sorry, I have to work tonight. She'd say, oh, can I come over? And she would lie down next to me and she would be on her iPad and she would listen to me do readings. And then when I get off the phone, she would tell me how brilliant I was and how much it turned her on. She said, I just love sitting next to you. Now, that sounds really, fantastical. Who does that? But that totally shifted me. It made me, so she lives here. That I can hold on to. The rest of it, I don't fucking know. I tend to believe certain things, but who cares? So who cares? You're not dead right now. Live in the moment. That's all that matters. Okay, looking for the questions. All right. Makia. Question 2. I am feeling stalked by the number 22, literally everywhere. That's not a question. That's a statement. Oh, does it mean anything? Can't find any real explanations. Who cares? It's a fucking number. Who cares? There might be something to it. I honestly don't know. But I'll tell you this. That is, again, one of those things that gets us out. There's nothing more important than being in your authentic emotions right now. Getting wrapped up in spirituality and getting super wrapped up in intellectualized spirituality, talking about the nature of the soul, talking about shit you can't do anything with. There's nothing practical. Even if you are being stalked by the number 22, what can you do with that? How does that knowledge help you? It's just a way to make you feel important, right? There's something, I keep seeing the number 11 everywhere, 22, 33, there's something to it, and there's some other, it makes you feel like you're not alone in this scary universe. That's why we do this kind of shit. So I don't know if there's a meaning to it or not. Who cares? It sounds like artsy, whatever. It sounds like new age frou-frou stuff. What can you do with that to make your life better? Okay? All right, moving on. Moving on for the questions. Yeah, I'm really full of fire these days. I'm just kind of saying it like it is. I hate when it does this. I had a question and then something happened and it pushed me past where I was. That's why I wish that you guys didn't write so much stuff on here. Question, please tell me what the large white medallion is that you are wearing. You mean this one? This was made for me by one of my students. For people who follow my path or read my books, you know exactly what this is. This is a map of the 9 worlds of the universe. It is a symbol that was called by my ancestors an Ayashjalmar, which means helm of awe. And warriors would paint this on their forehead, or they'd put it inside their helmet or their cap. Helm of awe meant that it would open the, it's meant for driving away negativity. So warriors thought if they put it on their third eye that it would frighten the enemy. And that's really kind of a lower vibrational use of it. It's to drive away negativity. But for me, it also has connections to the 9 worlds. That right there is a thunder wheel. So if you really want to understand this, go to thunderwizard.com and sign up as an apprentice at the $25 level, and I teach about how all these symbols are used and how to use them in shamanism and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's a large question. I could go on for hours about that symbol, and someday I will. All right. Looking for the questions. Basil Manus, again, it helps me if you put questions so I can tell, otherwise I might pass it by. Is it a matrix? Is it a matrix where witchcraft is accessing a mother? I don't know what that means. I can't answer your question, sorry. I don't understand your question. There is no, okay. Carrie Klein, question. Could you please comment on the statement, what you're looking for is what is looking, and then I think you meant to say, what you're looking for is what's looking for you. Yeah, that is, you know, I guess the secret says that, you know, what you focus on is what you manifest. What you're looking for is looking for you. Everything is your own projection. If you project fear, then people become afraid of you. If you project anger, people respond angrily towards you. If you know, the positive way to look at it is if you're looking for love, love is looking for you. But the point that I'm trying to talk about today is the unconscious projection. When you unconsciously project positive or negative, that's what you end up getting. The whole point of this path, and I'm getting to a capstone technique practice, which I will be sharing soon. First, I'm going to finish creating the Vedic astrological certification program, get people certified and making money doing that. Then I'm going to start working with women and teaching them, more than teaching them, you know, helping them to teach each other the path of the staff carrier woman, which is, in my ancestral tradition, the women had a very prominent role and a powerful role in Norse society, which is they carried the power of the masculine in their staff. They carried the man's power with them. And nothing was done without their shamanic ability to see into the nature of the universe. So I'm going to be creating something for them, some kind of a certification program for them to teach them and help them teach each other to go off and do their job. And then I am going to start teaching this capstone technique, which ideally you want to get to the place where you consciously manifest your reality. And that's going to, you know, in this teaching today, it's step 3. You execute the prime directive. The idea is you can't execute the prime directive until you've worked through all the unconscious blocks. And the vast majority of people have them. If you've come into and you're training with me, if you're attracted to my path, you have stuff you need to work through. Otherwise, you wouldn't be attracted to what I'm teaching. Because there are plenty of people out there that'll tell you exactly what you want to hear. You want to go, you can go to church right now. You can go to any Christian church and they'll tell you just believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. There are plenty of people here that'll tell you, oh yeah, if you become a vegan and do this, and then you'll get the harvest, and you'll be culled, and you won't be able, you'll escape the matrix. And if you're not a vegan, then you won't go. Oh, all I have to do is be a vegan? If you worship this guy and follow this guy and do this thing, there's plenty of things. I've had people tell me, in the past, you should create a cult because you'd be really good at it. And I would. I know exactly what people are looking for, and I could create the little things to. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I forgot what the question was. All right. So what you're looking for is what's looking for you. If you're going after your true joy, then your true joy is looking for you. An example is where I'm living now. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to be closer to the beach, but I was letting my financial limitations keep me from what I wanted. And so I was trying to imagine myself maybe a mile inland or whatever, and I had all these, anyway. And I decided one day, I said, screw all that. If I didn't have to worry about that, where would I live? And I pointed right here. I didn't realize it until later, but I pointed right here. And I said, I'd live in that apartment. And I'd live right on the beach, and I want to live on the second floor and be able to look out my window in the morning and see what the waves are like and go surfing. And then I go, oh, but I can't afford that. And I said, screw that. I'm going to be able to afford it. And I intended it, and then I let it go. And then when I came to look at this place, because it became vacant, and I met the landlord, he basically, put a gun to my head and said, become a tenant. He wanted me to sign that day. And just a week beforehand, I was getting rejected by people, just without even looking at certain things. They were just rejecting me, and I thought, and then I got exactly what I wanted. I was looking for exactly what I wanted, and it's because it wasn't about being safe or being rich or being this. I wanted to surf. It makes me happy, and I want to live here on this beach and surf this beach. So I was looking for it, and it came looking for me and tackled me. Said, here you go. I would have had to work hard not to get this place. And anyway, he's a great landlord. I like him. Anyway. So I hope I answered your question there. All right, let's see. Question. Lady Red. I have been told that I must detach from personal relationships in order to progress. Please help me understand what it means to detach and why. Why not? It's important. I do not understand it all. Well, that is a huge question, and I'm really not able to answer that in full, within a 5-minute thing. You need counseling. I mean, if you were to, that's something that I could take up with you, and spend an hour talking about. Having said that, what people are trying to say is that you are attaching to people in a way that's destructive to you, which means that you are somewhere in your world, you were taught that in order to be safe, you had to meet other people's expectations. Or you learned that in order to survive, you had to be attached to other people. And because, being attached, there's nothing wrong with being attached to people. I was so attached to my, and I still am, to my, my dead fiance. So attached to her. But I was, I've spent the majority of my life single. So there's nothing wrong with being attached. It's when your whole life is about, meeting other people's needs or being attached to other people. If you're saying, I need to detach, it means that you're attaching to people who are probably destructive to you. I could go on and on and on, but I can't answer that question in one, you need help. If you don't want to get help from me, you got to get help from somebody. You can go to CODA, Codependence Anonymous. They'll help you with that. Rob McClenny, question. I was told to find inner peace. How does that work? You guys are asking me these questions. You really think I can tell you in 30 seconds how to find inner peace? This whole video is trying to help you find inner peace. So keep watching my videos. Go spend time watching my videos. Let me see here. All right. Karen Wood. Question. Are dwarves known as the collective unconscious mind? Well, they're not known that. That's part of the way that I teach what dwarves are. Dwarves are emotional constructs of your unconscious mind. They're not the collective unconscious. I mean, if you and I are using the same term, what the collective unconscious means, the unconscious of the whole world. No, that can be dwarvish, but dwarves are emotional beings that you create um, in your unconscious mind, and when you get really attached to that emotional attachment, then either when you die or even when you're alive, they can squirt out and become, spirits. But anyway, yeah. But I thought about that too. The Disney story actually comes. The Disney story of, you mean Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? That actually comes from an older Germanic mythology. So there's some correlation, even though I don't think people understood how to do that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost here. Anyway, getting kind of tired. Question. I'll finish up with this question and then I'll do number 3. Question. Mystery Thunder Wizard, tell me if Jews are alien to... Well, I'm not even going to bother with that. What is that? I don't do any of that racist crap. So I don't do that. I don't know if that's where this is coming from, but I don't do that. I'm of Norse descent. My fiance who died was an Ashkenazi Jew, even though she wasn't a practicing Jew. My ex-wife was half Chinese. My teachers were of African descent. My current teacher is of Jewish descent. I don't give a flying fuck about race. So I won't answer any of those questions. I don't know if you mean anything negative by that, but I take tremendous offense when people start getting racial, and I don't do that. So none of your question has anything to do with race. So if you want to follow my path, you're going to have to drop any of that stuff. So I hope I wasn't offensive to you or hurt your feelings, but anyway, enough of that. Raising vibrations. Question. Do you have any thoughts on sensory deprivation tanks? They sound like fun. I've never done them before. So no. All right, so let's get to number 3. First, let's do some business here, which means taking a look at the links and stuff that I give, and then I'll get to number 3, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so now we're at step 3. So this is where we want to go. This is where we want to end up. Step 2 is the hardest one. Step 1, determining your soul desire, which is what it is that makes you happy, that truly gives you joy. That, especially when you're a little kid, that's easy. And in fact, everybody has it. I don't care whether you're aware of it or not. You may not know consciously what you want. Trust me, it's there. It hasn't left you. It's always been there, and it is constantly trying to get your attention. Physical pain, illness, chronic pain, poverty, misery, all that stuff is ways that your soul is saying, hang on, hang on, hang on, you're going the wrong way. That's not what you want. So that's easy, and everybody can easily find that. And that's one of the things I do at career.thunderwizard.com is I'll spend an hour with you, even if you don't know you don't know what it is that you want or what you should be doing for a living. I can help you most of the time within one session figure that out. If you've got a lot of unconscious blocks or resistance, it may take more, but usually I can do it in one session. I can tell you, you're the one that's going to figure it out. I just know what questions to ask to get you to figure it out for yourself. Step 2 is the hardest. Defragging your hard drive, getting past all of the decisions and choices that you made in order to protect yourself, instead of going after what it is you truly want. Which, when you go after what you truly want, you will be vulnerable. You will be in the 0 point. My first teacher said, you go from nothing to something back to nothing. And then he said, what most people do is they go from something to nothing back to something. But if you really want power, you have to go to nothing. You have to go to emptiness. That's a scary, frightening place to be, but that's where all the power is. So that is what you have to do in step 2. You have to get to that nothing point. And that doesn't mean, making yourself a doormat or not having any feelings. Quite the opposite. It means having all of your feelings and being in that scary place and not taking action to try and get rid of that feeling. Staying with the feeling. Learning that feelings won't kill you. Not addressing them can. And not taking action on what you truly want can kill you. But just having a feeling and not trying to stuff it down with something. And a lot of the way, and one of the biggest ways people stuff down their feelings is everything is beautiful and I'm just full of love and light and I'm just feeling positive and I'm not afraid. And they're just totally clueless. They're pushing all that anger and that fear down. You got to deal with it. Because then you'll be able to get closer to the true source of vulnerability, which is the 0 point within you, the true power, which is your joy. And then you'll be able to do step 3, execute the prime directive. It means to take action. Now, you can take action now. It's not that you have to wait to take action. It's just that most people don't know what actions to take. And a lot of I hesitate to say all the time, but in my experience, all of the time that you've got, really unacceptable things, we're talking about adults. Little kids, it's a little different because little kids, they're going through the challenges that their soul has chosen to experience. When I was talking about being, 14 years old and getting beat up and picked on by, guys older than me and twice my size, there wasn't a whole lot I could do about that. There wasn't a whole lot I could do in that moment of being born in a family, where my father was a practicing alcoholic and, I had an abusive older brother and all that. There wasn't a whole lot I could do to change that. But looking back on it now that I'm an adult, the way to get through that is to accept that I did choose that my soul needed to learn from those challenges, that being who I am right now and talking about being able to change your timeline, that is 54 years later. So people want to know, well, why did this happen and why was I bad? Well, because getting out of that and learning from those experiences is going to get you to a place where you will have something to leave behind. And that's what I want to do with this path. I want, I've always kind of had the feeling that this path that I'm creating is going to even be bigger once I'm gone. When I'm no longer on this planet, it'll be a legacy that I've left, and people will take what I've put here and continue to build and create and expand, and it's not mine anymore. I've never had the feeling that I'm the expert of it. I'm giving out these big chunks of things, and then you take that and do something with it. But in order to be able to give people the strength to, this is why I'm not phased. When I talk to people on the phone and you hear the litany of the horrible stuff that they go through and how horrible their lives are, that's why I can say without flinching, you created that. You're not a victim. You made that happen. There's not a lot of people that can do that and understand it. It's because I've been through my own state of misery. Again, I haven't told you guys a lot about it, but the shit that I went through, I've just barely scratched the surface. So anyway, number 3 is you have to take action. You have to take action on your soul desire, and that the action is important. So in my spirituality that I teach, there is no enlightenment where you have meditated for 20 hours and then you don't have any feelings anymore. And I am emptiness. I don't teach that. The meditation that I teach is so that you can do step 2s. Meditation is all about doing step 2. Being able to process and get rid of the fragments in your hard drive, being able to be in the present moment with all of your feelings and be able to take constructive action on them, to not be afraid of them. And listen, it's easier said than done. It's tough. It's tough. If I could have told you the things that I wanted to do the past 3 months to get out of some of the pain that I've experienced, I'm no different than you guys. I'm no different than you. All right, so that's step 3. I don't know if I've said, I don't even know what I've really said here, but anyway, let's see if there's any more questions, and then I think I'm done for the evening. Okay, let's back up here. All right, so sorry, this is why it helps if you don't just throw stuff out there. If you have a question, I can get to it. Otherwise, I have to scroll through everybody's blah, 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 blah. Question: can you share some of the applications of African healing drumming? I don't know what you mean by the applications of African healing drumming. My African teacher, he's still alive. His name is Baba Ayo Adayemi. I don't know if he still teaches. I think he's getting old, and he's had a lot of operations lately. But Baba Ayo Adayemi. The other one is Francis Awe. He's another one. Last name Awe. I think he still teaches. He still teaches in Los Angeles. The applications of those, there is a whole science to all that stuff, and when you play certain rhythms in combination with other certain rhythms and you time them precisely, then the orishas come down, which are the gods. And when I was teaching, when I lived in Idaho, I had a class and I taught, and when I'd get everybody lined out and playing the right stuff, you'd be playing the drums and you'd see people going. And afterwards they'd say, "Did you hear children laughing?" They'd say, "No, it was bells." And somebody said, "No, somebody came in through the door." All kinds of weird stuff would happen. But it calls down the energies. And so, each deity would have its own song and its own rhythm. So if you needed healing, you could bring a deity down that would do healing. If you needed power, if you needed strength, if you were celebrating, whatever the heck it was. But there were ways you could use drumming to kill somebody. You could, if you knew what to do and send that, you could kill somebody with it. So there are all kinds of applications about it. I'm not currently teaching that stuff anymore, just because there's only so many things I can do in this world, and so I'm not currently teaching. But if you want to get the benefits of some of it, I do have some of it on my CDs if you're interested. Okay, so looking for the question: can you talk about gemstones and their relation to astrology and/or enlightenment? Very quickly, I'm wearing a moonstone. That's because there is a planet in my chart that's called the Dharma Devata, which is the planet that is guiding me on my true path. And when I wear the gemstone of my Dharma Devata, which is moon, that aligns me to my path. So I don't know about the other uses of gemstones. That's one of the main ones that I do. Mars is very powerful in my chart, so you can see I've got some red stones here. There's some red stones in here. My student put together moonstone and labradorite and red garnet. Those all align with me and help me strengthen me and do my job. I don't know if I answered your question, but let's see what else. Question: how do you get an answer from the universe? I'm facing northeast. Well, if you're facing northeast, that's the direction of the ancestral masters. How do you get an answer from them? Just communicate with them. The best direction, if you want answers, is the northwest, because that's the realm of the ancestral masters, the elves, the bodhisattvas, however you want to look at it. It's the direction of the moon. The moon is your reflective mind. So if you really want an answer to the universe to answer you, I would face northwest. Again, I would need to look at your chart to see which direction is best for you to get the answers that you need. Looking for the questions. Question: going back and forth with grief and anger, do you have a suggestion? Again, how can I possibly answer that question in 10 seconds? I know nothing about what you're grieving about. Listen, I know you asked, with an honest intention, but this encapsulates what is wrong with modern Western New Age. We're looking for that one pill. That you're going through this grief and you want me to say, oh yeah, put your finger like this and do that, and then you won't be in grief anymore. It's totally trivializing what you're grieving about. You have to be able to have that grief. And anger is a defense against things like grief and pain. There's no way I can possibly help you unless I were to talk to you. I would have to ask you a bunch of questions to help get into your unconscious and figure out how you're doing it. You need people. And I thank you for the question, but there's no way I can answer that and be of any use to you. I can't help you in 10 seconds without knowing anything about you. So anybody watching this, if you want me to help you in that way, go to career.thunderwizard.com and book a session with me. Other than that, get some help. Talk to somebody. Seriously. Get some help. You can't do it alone. A doctor cannot take out his own appendix. No matter how ascended you are, you have to have help if you're grieving. Listen, I'm going through it. Still going through it 3 months later. I wish I weren't. I'll be honest with you, I've had enough of the grief of somebody dying. I wish I were done with it, but I'm not. And I seek help out from both my teacher and from my friends, and I talk about it. And I share it with you guys. You can't do it alone. Can't do it alone. Need help. Question, could you speak a minute about Papa Legba? I don't know. Oh, that's, no, I don't have enough information about that deity. So sorry, I can't help you with that. I don't want to talk about something I don't know anything about. Okay. All right, so I don't see any more questions here. So let me take another quick break here, and I'll come back with a pithy statement at the end. Okay, I'm sitting here thinking about what I want to say. I'm having a lot of feelings. You know, and everything is a projection. So that's my projection. What are the feelings that I have? You've been seeing me lately. I'm getting a little more raw. I'm getting, I'm kind of letting the mask down. I'm cussing a little more. I'm being a little more, whatever. Tell it like it is, kind of whatever. It's really important to me that I help people get what is most practically helpful for them. I've been having a lot of, because of what I've gone through recently, there's been a lot of people who have wanted to help me, friends, students, teachers, people want to help. Because losing my other self, my other half, it's incredibly difficult. And sometimes people, when they're trying really hard they're trying to help, they can be really destructive. And so it's really weighing on me that if I'm helpful to you, I want to give you what's practical. I don't want to waste your time with something that's either going to be like a sugar cube that's going to taste good in your mouth, but will only, be empty carbs and rot your teeth out later. I really want to make sure that what I give you is something that you can use. And, I'm questioning all kinds of things, especially questioning what is the nature of the soul when you're dead. Really questioning that. And although none of my beliefs have changed, I still have the same beliefs that I've had. What I am thinking about is, ultimately the only thing that matters is what can I practically use to make my life better. That's all that matters. Because when I'm dead, I'll be dead, and I'll be somewhere else. I'll be in some other state. I'll be in a totally different, who knows what. This brain on my head, these eyes, this mouth, this voice, these hands, this body that identifies itself as Michael William Denny, only gets one shot at this life. And I believe that I owe it the best life I can give it. And I see that what we do when we divert ourselves from our greatest joy is that we cause damage to this physical body and to these emotions. The emotions that I feel aren't necessarily my soul. They're the emotions of this body. And this is one of the things that we miss out on. Anyway, I'm getting kind of lost, but the point is that it has to, whatever spirituality you follow, in my opinion, for it to be valid, regardless of what religion it is, it has to pass the litmus test. And the litmus test is, what can I do with that information or that belief or that practice that will make my life better? And you should be asking that question about me and about what I teach and the practices I give you. Does it make your life better? I talked about the reason why I chose to believe in reincarnation, and the reason why I chose to become a polytheist is because ultimately I don't care if it's true or not. What I care about is, does it make me happier? And does it give me something that I can use to make my life better? Believing in reincarnation helps me. It helps me live this life and take action towards being happy. I guess that's what I mean. Does it help you to take action to be happier in life? Christianity for me doesn't. I'm starting to understand why some people become Buddhists. And I guess the kind of Buddhism is, Buddhism is very practical. And there was, I forget the name of, one of the, there's a lot of Buddhist scriptures that I think are nonsense, but there's one of them where Buddha is, has been teaching for a while, and he's got all these students, and one of his students comes to him and says, Tathagata, which is one of his names, perfected something or other. I've been following you for X amount of months, and you haven't once talked about the nature of the soul, or what happens after death, or if there is a heaven, or if there is a hell. And he goes through this list of all the things. He says, you've never once talked about those things. And Buddha says to him, when did I ever say I was going to teach you about the nature of the soul, or where we go after death, or whether there's a heaven or a hell? I've never said that I would ever teach that to you. The only thing that I've ever said is that attachment brings misery. And that's the only thing I ever will teach. So if you want me to teach those things, you're going to have to go somewhere else, because I'm never going to teach those things to you. And I think that is, I don't know. I know that there was a man that, unlike Jesus, there really was a guy named Buddha. And he was a human being, and he died of physical illness, and he was a meat eater, by the way. He wasn't a vegan or a vegetarian. And he died of illness. He was very human. But at some point, he came to that realization, and that was his way. his way of asking, does this knowledge help me make my life better? And he just focused on that. Now, I think Buddhism has its problems, and people get just as wrapped up in their intellect and they hide from their feelings just as much as any other religion. That's what happens. That's the danger of all, paths once you lay them out. That's the problem. And that could be a potential problem with my path as well. But while I'm still alive, I hope that I can at least do what I can to focus on that. And what I can guarantee for those people who choose to work with me is that whether you like it or not, I will strive to help you find what your true soul desire is, and I will strive to help you take actions to go after that. And if there's an extent where I can't do that anymore, you shouldn't follow me. And if it gets to the point where, and I think what will happen is, and this has happened with numerous students, they get to that point where they're going to have to start taking action. And those actions are going to be very frightening, and then they're going to be conscious. Because when you take action on your soul desire, you will become conscious of all kinds of crap. For me, taking action, the one of the biggest ones was when I got divorced, but not just that, but when I moved out to California, back to California with no money. And I was in physical pain. That was huge action for me. It was scary as hell, but I didn't care. If I was going to die doing that, then I was going to die doing that. But that action set off a whole chain of events, and it was very painful, and I had to look at all kinds of junk within myself. But had I not taken that action against all odds, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And I can say that my life is much better now. I went out surfing today, and as I said, the waves are pretty good size, but the tide wasn't right and the conditions weren't right, and so I didn't have the perfect session. And I came home and I walked into my apartment on the beach, and I was complaining to myself about this and that. And I stopped and I went, you know what, my fiance, she died a horrible death, very painful, horrible death, and I watched her for months. And I can promise you that, I don't know what she's like now. Maybe she's happy where she is now. I'm assuming that she is. But I can tell you that if I were to complain to her, like a month before her death about that, I'm quite certain she would look me in the face without any anger and say, I wish I had your problems. I wish that my problems were that I, just came back from surfing and it wasn't perfect. And then I get to relax all day and then get on the phone and get paid to help people work through their problems. I really wish that was my problem. And that, I thought about that, and that kind of woke me up out of that. And it got me back into thinking about this life is so fucking short. And to waste any of it, in that kind of petty nonsense is I hope I remember that, because that at the very least her death will have served that function to keep me in that kind of reality of holy crap, there's nothing but things that I can be grateful for. But we do have negative feelings, we do have pain, we do have sadness, we do have fear, and we do have unresolved issues that have to be addressed. And being unconscious is not an excuse. I will end with this. I've said it before, and I will probably say it again. Even though you're unconscious of issues, meaning you are totally unaware of what your issues are, you are still being held responsible for them, and you are still being held responsible for the decisions that you made and the actions that you take based on those unconscious, what I was calling before, your fragments in your hard drive. So it's not an excuse to say I don't know or I can't help it. You can't rely on that excuse. The universe does not know. From the universe's perspective, there is no barrier between conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. It's all available to the whole, it's all there. That's why shamanism, typical shamanism, goes to the three worlds of the underworld, the heaven world, and the middle world. It's talking about the three minds, the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. And so you can reverse engineer, but the way to get to the core of the issue, when you chose to go out of alignment with yourself in a false assumption of how to protect yourself, and I'm not blaming you, you did the best you could at that time. The only way, in my experience, to get back to that is to get to the feeling. Let's say you've got chronic pain. I've had chronic pain when I'm struggling. Like right now, at this moment, I'm having a pain underneath my thigh. It's because there's some things I got to deal with in my life, so I know I got to deal with it. The way to get to the core of what causes that is to feel the feeling and to follow that feeling all the way back to the core. Most of us cannot do that alone. After you've had enough training and you've done enough work, you might be able to do some of it on your own. Sometimes I'm able to go into my body and ask my body, why are you angry at me? And if I listen, my body can tell me. And if I can't figure it out, I got to get help. I got to go to somebody and ask for help. And I got to talk with somebody and have them reflect back to me. And again, the whole point of this is I could give a flying fuck about being spiritual, about being righteous, about being good. I could care less about any of that. The only thing I care about is having as much fun as I can possibly have in this life, and to enjoy my life and enjoy my body and enjoy this world. That's why I never get caught up in any of the conspiracy theory crap, true or otherwise. That's why I don't care about any of that. None of that will bring me any happiness. I have no control over any of that stuff. So that's the bottom line. Number two, I guess the point is that we've got to get, if you want to make progress, if you want to get to step 3, where you can intend your reality just by thinking about what you want, you've got to get through step 2. You've got to defrag that hard drive, which means first step is being able to know what you're feeling and to be able to have your feelings and not run away from them. So that's all I've got. I'll see if there are any other questions before I go today. Question: I experience life through my brain's experience of life. How would I experience the same experience with no brain? First off, that is an assumption. You're obviously new to my channel. That is an assumption. You are assuming that you experience life through your brain. You don't know that for a fact. There was, I've shared about this, there was an experiment that was told to me by one of my students. They were trying to determine when decisions are made in the brain. And I think the example was pick up the pencil. So they put a bunch of electrodes to the guy's head and blah, 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 and they're monitoring it. And they go, okay, pick up the pencil. The guy picks up the pencil, then something fires off in the brain. The assumption is that decisions are made in the brain. They're not. The brain only records the decision after the fact. So I don't agree with you that you experience life through your brains. If you do only experience life through your brains, then you're living in your intellect. I'm going to make a guess. You smoke weed, right? Right? You live in your intellect. Your intellect is used to keep you out of your emotions. I could be wrong about that, but that question tells me you live in your head. Living in your head means you're not living in your feelings, which means that you probably take actions to avoid your feelings. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I see when I look at that. Looking for the question. Susie Yoten's wife. Question: is there a correlation of the three selves to the three levels of the mind? Yes. I don't have time to get into it tonight, but yes, there is. Johnny Delgadillo. Question: are you talking directly to me? It feels like it. No, I'm not talking directly to you. That's one of the things that happens. There's probably a handful of people that think I'm talking directly to them. Nope, I'm just telling you what's on my mind. Nothing personal directed at anybody. Cosmo Joe, question. What if you don't know what you want despite meditating? Well, what do you mean, what if you don't know? Again, I have to, are you one of my apprentices? Do we talk? Because I have to talk to you. I have to be able to talk to you, and by doing so, I can find out what you're doing, how you're escaping. You could also be living in your intellect, which is an escape from your feelings, and it's a habit, and you've been doing it for a very long time, and so you don't know right offhand how to get out of your head and into your feelings. So that's what people like me are for. You got to work with me on a regular basis. Feeling unmotivated by anything but the idea of transcending the limitations of life through the acquisition of spiritual power. I'll repeat that. I feel unmotivated by anything but the idea of transcending the limitations of life through the acquisition of spiritual power. You are running away from your feelings. Your desire for spiritual power is you want to control. You feel out of control. You're unmotivated by anything but the idea of transcending the limitations of life. I feel a lot of pain when I read that. You're in a lot of pain. Otherwise, life wouldn't be limiting. I love life. I don't feel the limitations of life. I mean, I love my life. I love what I do. I love, that I'm able to have 10 surfboards in that other room. I love that I can go surfing on my favorite beach. I love that I'm thinking about taking a trip to the South Pacific, take myself on a surf trip. I just need I need a masseuse. I need to find a masseuse who will come with me, preferably an attractive one. But if you're trying to transcend the limitations of life, remember everything is a projection. The limitations of life are your limitations. There's pain. You've got pain that you're trying to escape. So the reason why you don't know what you want is because in order to know what you want, you would have to feel the pain. That's what step 2 is all about. You've got to feel the emotions. And if you can't feel the emotions, or if you're running away from the emotions, you won't know what you want. That's why a lot of people, when I ask them, in a perfect world, what would you want? They say, oh, I'd like to win the lottery, because then if I had a lot of money, that has nothing to do with what you want. The universe will give you whatever you need, whether you have a lot of money or not. What do you want? I don't know. They do know, but in order to know, you got to get past all this. This intellect is overworked. It's only there to solve problems, but when your problem is, I don't want to feel my feelings, then it overworks itself. And people go, I see the number 22 everywhere. What does that mean? I see the number 33. Such an escape. There's no meaning to it. It's just numbers. Okay? Dude with a hat. Question. What do you say about feelings of insanity? Well, insanity isn't a feeling. I mean, I get what you mean. You feel crazy. A feeling is, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm happy, I'm frustrated. Those are feelings. Insanity is that you're overstimulated. There's so many feelings going on that so that's not necessarily a feeling. But let me finish your whole question. What do you say about feelings of insanity that have to deal with odd and weird alignments? You mean obsessions? You're obsessed with odd and weird alignments? Obsessions is the intellect. Again, the intellect, when it is off base, you're using it to get out of your feelings. When I use the word over-intellectualized, that's what I mean. I use that word a lot. Such and such, this book, or that's such an over-intellectualization means that they're out of their feelings. It's a way to escape. I don't mean it in a good way. It comes from fear. I practice non-thought, and sometimes things appear to be happening around me that are my thoughts. I don't really know what that means. I'd need to know, I need to know more of that. There's a lot of jargon there. I need to talk to you. Again, it sounds like you're stuck in your head. That's what I hear. And to be, look, if you're talking about synchronicity, I experience synchronicity all the time. But it doesn't bother me. It makes perfect sense. My synchronicity is, I've been working at this for a long time, but I think about what it is that I want, and then when I realize what it is that I want, I simply project it, and it happens. And then I can tell you all the synchronous events of this, that, and the other thing that brought me there, but it's no mystery to me. It's not a mystery to me at all. So anyway, just see how to start feeling though when you're scared to whole point to not feeling in the first place. Well, you need help. How to start feeling? You need help. You need somebody to help you do that. So if you don't know how to have your feelings because you're so scared, then you need to work with somebody like me. I mean, I roll my eyes because I'm so busy, but go to career.thunderwizard.com. I can help you. I think that's it. I don't see any more questions. Yeah, oh no, there are some more questions. Never mind. Let's see. How much weed? Is that a question? How much weed? Well, you want to know how much weed is okay? I don't know who you're talking to. All right, you're talking to somebody else, I think. All right, so that's it for me, my friends. So again, we got 3 things going on right now. We've got, of course, if you need an astrological reading, astrology.thunderwizard.com. That will help me a lot. It helps me to help you a lot, help you find out exactly how to go after your best career that's in your chart. I can usually help you find that. If you want to be an astrology apprentice and have your own astrology business, you can go to astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. Level 2 is you become a direct apprentice underneath me, where there will be a select number of people, and I don't know how many. I can't make any promises, but when I've reached my capacity of astrology readings, I will farm them out to people at least this is my plan. We'll see what happens. I'll farm them out to people whom I have worked with, and then you can also, if you get to level 2 certification, then I'll give you a page somewhere on my website where you can direct people to it, and they'll purchase it, and then you can create your own business. Let's see what else. If you need help, you can go to career.thunderwizard.com. Again, I'm pretty busy, but if you don't know what you want, you don't know what your prime directive is, I can ask you some questions to help you get there. If you know you've got some unresolved issues that you can't work through, I can help you. Most of the time I can help people with that. This stuff takes time, by the way, guys. Doing your ritual, working through the stuff that comes up, the hard work of trying to do step 2, which is feeling the feelings and getting through it. It takes time. There is no quick fix. Any teacher that tells you there's a quick fix is either lying or deluded. There is no quick fix. If there were, people wouldn't reincarnate over and over again. Even though it's difficult and challenging, I can tell you that the benefits of this, even in all the pain and misery and stuff that I have gone through, I have so much fun in my life. And I really like, my health and my happiness and all of that. And that is available too. So anyway, I am done babbling for the evening. I'll take one last check to see if there are any real questions. Any questions that I can answer for you. I don't see any, so I'm going to cut you guys loose for the evening. Thank you for letting me talk, and you guys helped me a lot by just being there, so I appreciate it. Okay, my friends, that's it for me. I may have something in me. We'll see if I have something to talk about before the weekend's up. Maybe we'll have another one, but that's it for me tonight. Thank you. May the power of the gods and the ancestors be with you.